The world of wine is constantly changing and evolving, and with that will come new words that we need to get familiar with. Hi there, I'm Jacqueline for Vero, where we go around the world searching out wild and scarce wines to bring to the United States for wine explorers, businesses, and distributors to discover and enjoy. A lot of these small production wines we taste and select to offer are what some might consider to be part of the natural wine category. And this category brings up a whole host of new terminologies and words to learn. We have talked about some basic wine lingo in the past, 2 videos in fact. I will have those linked below to check out after this, but make sure to subscribe to not miss any more cool videos like that we put out. All right, so natural wine. It can be a bit of a hot topic at the moment, and it's one that we've talked about a lot on this channel. So without further ado, let's define natural wine and some other related words. Natural wine. Now, technically, there are no certifications or a generally codified description of what is a natural wine. So, in our view, a natural wine is a well-crafted wine that is ideally produced in small batches by the farmers themselves. They use sustainable, preferably organic methods, and rely on native yeast for fermentation. We will classify a wine as natural if it has nothing added during the winemaking process except for a minimal amount of sulfites to just help protect the bottled wine from spoilage. The grapes will be farmed with the minimal amount of intervention to prevent them harm on the plant, to prevent harm to the environment, and make sure that they're safe for us humans. We do recognize that certain wine growers are much more rigorous and particular about their farming methods, but we feel that this is the minimum for a wine to be considered natural. Biodynamic. Biodynamic wines pertain at their heart to the agricultural side of winemaking. We have done a whole video before on this topic, but the gist of it is that while there is a certification for biodynamic wines, controlled by Demeter International, we believe that wines are considered biodynamic when there is an overall farming philosophy that is based on maintaining the delicate balance between the vineyard and nature. We believe that biodynamic is the blending of the vines, the farmer, the phases of the moon, and the local flora and fauna. Col fondo. An Italian term, col fondo refers to when a sparkling wine will go through a bottle fermentation on the leaves and not be disgorged afterwards. This means that the wine is left on the lees, and we can even still see this as particles or a cloud in the bottle. Stay tuned for our definition of Pét-nat later in the video, as this is related to col fondo. Field blend. This is when a wine is made from a single vineyard, but with multiple varieties. The different varieties are grown, harvested, and vinified as one. So this is a blend, but made in the field. It's actually an old technique used by European farmers that is actually coming back in vogue. Native yeast fermentation. All right, so we know that fermentation is what makes wine happen, and this is thanks to yeasts. Yeasts can technically be added, but there are actually natural yeasts to be found on the grapes themselves. Winemakers can utilize these indigenous and naturally occurring yeast strains that are found natively in their vineyards. This can also be referred to as spontaneous fermentation or indigenous yeast fermentation. This can allow a wine to maintain a tie to its terroir and its area by using the yeasts that are found naturally in both the vineyard and the cellar. No sulfites added. In wines with no sulfites added, it means that the winemaker has chosen not to add any additional sulfites. Now, sulfites can act as a preservative in wine that will help it to age or survive longer on the shelf. And it's worth noting that sulfites are indeed a byproduct in and of themselves of the winemaking process. So a trace amount of sulfites will always be present. However, wines with no added sulfites will usually have lower levels of present sulfites than most other conventional winemaking methods. Orange wine. This is a popular term for skin contact white wines. These wines are made when white wine grapes are used like red wine grapes. Here, the juice sits in contact with the skin for a period of time from a few days to even a few weeks. This will give the wine more color, more complexity, and different flavors and aromas than a traditional wine made from the same grape. We actually have a whole video on orange wines that will be linked below. Organic. Organic wines are farmed and crafted without the use of chemicals. Wines can be considered organic if they are certified as such. However, it is worth considering that certification is an expensive and lengthy process that a lot of winemakers don't bother to do all of the paperwork for. This means that in some cases, a winery may work in an organic way, meaning no artificial pesticides, fertilizers, chemicals, etc., but they're just not going to go through that bureaucracy of filing and recertifying every year. This is where it's handy to know and meet the producers like we do to figure out how they work actually. Pét-nat, or the ancestral method. Pét-nat is an abbreviation of pétillant naturel, meaning naturally fizzy in French. This is, in fact, a French term for a special type of sparkling wines. Pét-nat wines are normally made in the ancestral method, or the old-fashioned way of making sparkling wines. This is where winemakers will seal a partially fermented wine in the bottle in order to make the frizzy bubbles appear. These wines are then not disgorged or filtered like a traditional method wine, but rather they will be sold with the yeasts and the lees still in the bottle, or as I call fondo, if you recognize that word from earlier in the video. Regenerative agriculture. Another word that we have lots of videos on, regenerative agriculture or regenerative farming, will champion the idea of preserving the land and the soil, leaving it better than how you found it. Here, we want to see the land grow healthier year after year and be sort of self-sustaining within its environment. This might be through the use of no chemicals, cover cropping, or no tilling or no tractor usage to maintain that soil integrity. Sustainability. When we consider sustainability or sustainable agriculture or farming, we are looking at how the vineyard, cellar, bottling, everything really is being done. We are looking at not only the local environment and how we interact with it with things like organic farming or regenerative agricultural techniques, but we are also going to the cellar and looking at things like water management or limiting CO2 emissions or even considering the weight of the final glass bottle. Sustainability will look at every aspect and strive to create as little impact as possible to the surrounding environment and to the overall global economy and supply chain. Vegan. You would think wine that is made from grapes, that's a fruit, and therefore all wine is vegan, right? Not true. Well, in the cellar, some animal products like egg whites or gelatins can be used to help clarify the wine. And in the vineyard, fertilizers based on manure or animal byproducts can also be utilized. In a true vegan wine, we are looking for those clarifiers to not be animal product based or not used at all. And we are looking for the fertilizers to be grass or plant based in the vineyard. 0-0 wines. These wines have 0 added and 0 removed. They are the purest form of minimal intervention. No filtering, so nothing removed will happen, but also no sugars, yeast, sulfites will be added. Nothing added. Here we will have just the grapes, and these are truly wines that are left to do their thing. All right, are you ready to taste all of these different wines? Head over to the Vero shop at verovino.com, where on the left-hand side of the shop, you can find our categories, where a lot of these terms will crop up. Pick out some bottles and we will ship them to you. Or if you want, you can write us for special trade pricing if you're in the business. As well, in the accompanying article on our website that I have linked down below, you can find specific wines that we have linked under each term that best personifies each concept. If you missed the article's release, then you should also make sure to sign up for the Vero newsletter, which I will have always linked below to make sure that you get notified when we release new articles and content. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like below and don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube and to the Vero newsletter on verovino.com. Between those two things, you will never miss anything new or exciting coming from Vero. If you are still interested in natural wine, then I recommend you check out this video here. See you over there. Bye!